Hello, my name is Lindy Cowling and welcome to my channel. My website is www.lindycowling.co.uk. My email is info@lindycowling.co.uk and the way to contact me is via email, please. Well, 1st of May, or Beltane, as some people call it and celebrate it. Hallelujah, we are alive, we survived, and we made it to the 1st of May 2017. Whew, what a year. So many changes so fast, many of those changes taking place internally in us first. It's a bit of a whirlwind. So hold on to your hats, it ain't slowing down yet. So the title of this video, which has been coming to me over the last 3 to 4 days, when I say coming to me, I have to assimilate it, understand it, process it, embody it and actualize it before I share it. I say I have to. That is the way I prefer to share. That is the way I prefer to teach, whatever way you want to call it, sharing or teaching. I prefer this to be an experiential channel, which means it is slow because I am not teaching from books. I am teaching from direct experience, my experience or that of my clients. So it is embodied and actualized. So having said that, because this has been building up for days until I'm able to assimilate it and embody it and actualize it and then share it, because at that point I've kind of got my head round it a bit. So the title of this one is called Metamorphosis, Morphogenetic Field and Magnetics. Metamorphosis, Morphogenetic Field and Magnetics. Bit of a mouthful. I will explain it as simply as I can and as slowly as I can, and I hope you find it helpful. Let's start with metamorphosis. The beginnings of this video is stimulated by my watching a nature program on television about 5 or 6 days ago. And this was the beginnings of the stirrings of putting a number of dots together. And then it went on to waking up with the words morphogenetic field in my consciousness. And then it's gone on to the bringing it all together with magnetics this morning. So I was watching a really interesting nature program, which was all about the concept of metamorphosis. As soon as I saw that this was on, this program, I zeroed in on it because much of what I've been describing over many months on this YouTube channel is a process of alchemy, a process of transformation, and a process of metamorphosis, all one and the same thing. And in this program, it was really interesting. The explanation in there was metamorphosis being different for various and varied different species, and the rate at which it takes place being different for different species. So just in case you're someone watching this and you don't know what metamorphosis means, simple example is when you have a caterpillar that goes into that kind of chrysalis, cocoony state and then emerges as a butterfly. So there's been a complete transformation, really. And in this nature program, because I tuned in about halfway through, I didn't see all of it, they were talking about frogs, and they were talking about that if not all frogs metamorphosize and change at the same rate, it's different. And they were highlighting the variations on how this is different. And one of the main ones was they studied that if when a tadpole is going to become, it's going to start in the process of turning into a frog, if it stays at the sediments, the gunk at the bottom of the pond, that process will be far slower than if it is at the top of the pond where they're assuming it's more light, and then the metamorphosis is much quicker. And I was really interested by this because I use those analogies on YouTube. I use those analogies all the time in private sessions with people. I actually say the sediment at the bottom of the tank. I don't say the sediment at the bottom of the pond, but I say the sediment at the bottom of the tank. I talk about the rate of vibrations and the different rates of evolution, but actually this is, let's call it, scientifically proven within nature and other species as well. So basically in the case of the frog, the more light they assumed the frog was in, the faster that change, and the more gunk and sediment, a bit like Dark Night of the Soul with us, at the bottom of the tank, the slower, slower the process, or the more you get caught up in that, the slower the process. So then they were talking about locusts and how you can get one particular batch that all stick together, and you can get another one that's kind of outside of the group. And actually when they did it under test conditions, all these locusts kind of massed together, but this other one literally turned its back on them and moved away. And so they did an experiment, God knows how they found this out, where if they stimulated the legs of the locust that turns away, it's after a few hours, I don't know how they found out that by stimulating a locust in this way it would do this, but that's another story. The locust that turned away, that wasn't interested in being with the masses, turned to the masses and actually becomes one of them, actually becomes one. And they got to the conclusion that it was by stimulating, an act of stimulation of the locust's legs, that stimulated some kind of response. And I think they tested it on another species. I'm not 100% sure if it was the serotonin link, I can't remember now, on the locust or not, but there was a link to serotonin, and they tested this on, I can't remember what else they tested it on, and basically it was the serotonin link that encouraged the conforming, really, or the oneness of all the locusts. Anyway, I found this fascinating because I was thinking they're talking about locusts here and frogs here, and so much this applies to us, and it's that connectedness again between us and everything, all that is, all that has been, all that ever will be, right the way down to insects, really. Well, the suggestion here is if you want oneness, you need to get someone to stimulate your legs. No. And that's the end of the video. Basically, we all need to be stimulated from the waist down, and then we get there. No, that's just my sense of humour. The point I'm making here is that connectivity between everything and everything that is going through a process of change and metamorphosis on this planet. And so this was the beginning of the birthing, the metamorphosis of this video, actually, because then that stirred something, that rumblings of there's some dots connecting up here, but they hadn't connected up then. Because millions of us at this moment are going through a process of metamorphosis where we are changing shape, we are changing in our expansion, we are changing in our direction, we are changing in the concept of who we thought we were into the truth of who we truly are. All of these things are happening, and we are at different rates of evolution, just like the tadpole. Depending on where we are, we're at different rates of evolution. Now, part of this metamorphosis also links to all the creatures on the planet and us, and that is the morphogenetic field. When that word came to me, I didn't even know if that was a real word, and I got it as I woke up in the early hours with morphogenic field in my mind, and I quickly wrote it down because I thought, well, that means something. And it came to me more later on. So a simple way of describing the concept of morphogenetic field is the blueprints, or the grid, if you like, for the process of the formation of the creation of life, of creatures, of the locust, of the frog, of nature, of the planet, of us, the blueprint, the grid, the all sitting around us in vibration, frequency, electromagnetics, that is there for the process of the formation of life, like the blueprint. So we go back to blueprints again, like the earlier video I brought out, busting blueprints. And that grid, that network, can obviously be affected positively and in its natural state. It can also be interfered with negatively. So you have a distorted frequency, a distorted blueprint, a distorted morphogenetic field. And where we come into it, so that could distort for animals, for creatures, for the planet, for the environment, for consciousness. This is all consciousness. Everything I'm talking about here is metamorphosis, morphogenetic field is all linked to consciousness. And where the human part of it comes in, because it all affects us, all of this, is the magnetic element of it, in that when we attribute a lot of thought, whether that is positive thought or negative thought, a lot of feeling, whether that is positive feeling or negative feeling, a lot of energy, whether that is positive energy or negative energy, to a concept, to a situation, to something in our life, to something about us, to somebody's personality, to an event, to something happening that we consider personally to us, to our health, to a number of different things, where we're attributing our thoughts, our energy, our personality, our emotions, emotion, energy in motion, emotion, energy in motion, where we attribute that affects magnetically if we get entangled with the positive or negative morphogenetic field, blueprint, grid, energy around us. So how we feel about it, negatively or positively, gets the momentum going. Inadvertently, if we feel very negatively about something, as that momentum gets going to a certain point, then the magnetics kick in. And when it's magnetically, let's go like this. stuck together, it's more tricky then to disassemble because you've attributed not just emotion and feeling but the magnetics to it. And then you get that process where things are repeating and repeating that you didn't want to repeat, or you get stuck, or something that should not even be in your energy field or your life experience anymore keeps replaying over and over again. Not always because you haven't learnt from it, although sometimes that is because you haven't learnt from it, but because you've got mistakenly tangled up by contributing and attributing your own thoughts and feelings to something that you didn't want. In other words, simple example, you're having a really crappy time of it and one thing seems to go wrong, and then because you're feeling lousy and maybe victimized, suddenly everything seems to be going wrong. And then you're like, well, I can't get my head around this. Is it because I'm not a good person? This is what people say. Is it because it's karma? Is it because this? Is it because that? And sometimes it may be elements of those reasons, but there's a big if here. And that if is, it may be that because things started to turn to shit, that somebody then would start to link to that ghastly vibration that they didn't want more of. And then because they attributed their thoughts, feelings and emotions to it, the magnetic switch kicked in. It all ran together like this, and then is affecting the actual grid, blueprint, energy around them. And so you can see here how it all links in, because once the magnetic component of the energy, which we are all magnetic, and again, you know, that's all to do with our souls as well, really. We can use it, we can flip it, just like flipping a magnet, very positively, because then this is how it works with the creation, not the basic level of manifestation, but creation, creating from the heart, creating from that joyful, childlike, happy feeling, or creating from like a neutral place without these extremes of life experience, emotion with magnetic qualities and energies attached to them. You can see where I'm going with this. If you can get tangled up by going down a route that you didn't mean to go down, simply because when there's enough momentum and enough feeling, whether that be positive or negative, towards something for long enough, and the magnetics stick in, well, I was going to say, I didn't mean to say stick in, but that's exactly what they do. It's like it sticks to it. It's like throwing mud at something and it sticks to it. And it's a question of literally unlearning that. To dissolve that is a question of unlearning it. This is how you get people where they may have an illness or something that technically no one can account for, and they shouldn't even have anymore. And the reason they still have it, not all illness, but a lot of illness, is because they are replaying the old blueprint or the old distorted morphogenetic field. They've attributed so much getting used to being ill, for example, for so long, that there's a belief that will never be any other way. And so it keeps feeding around into that magnetic loop over and over again. I'm only simplifying this. I know that there's more layers to it than that, but it's a simple way of explaining it. So it's all connected. So if we start at the beginning again and backtrack again, metamorphosis is a process of ascensionary change that millions of us have gone through or are going through or are at different stages of going through. This YouTube channel is a template for metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is a template for ascension through the root of the heart. It is a blow-by-blow account, although I never knew it was going to be that. It kind of started about the heart, and it has evolved further still into the heart as I have gone up the different levels of dimension, which are different levels of perception and consciousness. So metamorphosis is in relation to us as human beings, this process of change, this process of coming into the truth, this process of coming into the heart, this process of coming into awareness, this process of the heart running our lives, the metaphysical heart, the portal of the heart, the perception of the heart, the rungs of consciousness of the heart running our lives. Morphogenesis, which is all linked to creation, which is also linked to the heart, which is also linked to the heart portal, which is also linked to the truth of who we are, which is also linked to ascension, which is also linked to all the rungs of consciousness. That is a blueprint, the creation of what we feel to be life from consciousness. In its basic form. Can it be tampered with? Yes. By us, by forces outside of us, by positive intervention and negative intervention, by mistaken intervention. It is the basic blueprint. So you can see how it's all tying in. Where the magnetics come into this, from the human perspective, is where our strength of emotion goes and our strength of thoughts, not just random thoughts now and again. I mean real strength of thought, strength of emotion. We can create positively or negatively things that we do want or don't want, because the magnetic element of the energy is what makes it stick. So enough concentrated emotion or thought or feeling towards something is what makes it stick and create and almost keep coming back round. And so it's all connected, all of it. Metamorphosis, morphogenetic field, I wish it was easier to say, and magnetics, all different fingers coming and connecting in the same pie. And on that note, I am going to love you and leave you. So things are changing for all of us rapidly. And I did not have conscious awareness of this until this week, because it has been swimming about out there, but then it all comes in and rushes into one and becomes a realization. When it becomes a realization, then you go up a gear. It was up a gear in your dimensional awareness, your multidimensionality, your perception, and your rate of consciousness, and your levels of heart. I'm talking about all in one, the same thing here, all one. The interesting thing was, before that inner shift occurred, they're always inner shifts first for all of us. I had a hell of a week and I was feeling absolutely awful, like the headache from hell, really bad head for about 4 days while all this revelation was coming in. And as soon as it landed, then all the headache stopped. It was almost like going through that process of physical shift and central nervous system shift and elbowing any resistance out of the way shift had to occur before it was then metamorphosized. I'm like a little kid in a classroom that just worked out 5 + 5 = 10. I can see it all over my face. It's like, oh yeah, I got the sum right. It is a bit like that when you have a realization. It's like, oh yeah, I get it now. On that note, I hope you got it. I will love you and leave you. Do take care, and I'll see you again on videos soon. Bye.